Hello and welcome to my watch reviews, and we are with one of my watches. This is my latest addition to my vintage Seiko collection, and this Seiko is a pretty special one as well. I mean, just look at it for a start. This one is from 1973. It's got the 70s written all over it. It's got a wonderful dial on it, a magnificent movement as well. Now, to tell you the story of how this one started, I have a friend of mine, a guy called Craig Henn. He's a prolific Seiko collector like myself, and I've repaired and serviced quite a few of his watches over the last few years. And well, over a year ago actually, he sent me a blue dial version of this, but it came to me in complete and utter pieces. There was tins full of parts and a genuine new old stock case and bits and pieces like that, along with a gold watch, which is the one you're looking at now, although it doesn't look gold, as a donor or as a guide, depending on whether we needed parts or not, because it was a bit of a Pandora's box to make a watch out of complete pieces. I've never worked on this movement before in my life, so it was a challenge. So I set about disassembling the one that you can see in front of me, and also cross-checking the one that Craig had sent in pieces, picking the best parts and making a watch for Craig. He then allowed me to keep the rest of the bits, and in typical Mike Bolton fashion, well, that's an opportunity for me that can't go wanting. So I rebuilt the donor parts, if you like, and have now made a fully functioning and working watch. Now, I just love the dial on this particular watch. Seiko have done quite a few in this sort of vein, and in my collection I've got one or two with this sort of two-tone striping effect that they do, and I think it's absolutely glorious, to be honest with you. I wish they would bring it back. Essentially it looks like it's sort of painted one way and then painted in the opposite, and that kind of gives you that effect. But it's great. It changes in the light, so sometimes you can look at this watch and it just looks like a brown dial, and then other times, of course, you can see that stripe there. So really nice. Now, of course, we've got some gold indices there, a gold framing to the date window, gold hands as well, that have got some pinstriping on them and some lume. Now, in theory, this watch is a King Seiko. Now, if you don't know much about the vintage Seiko world, there are sort of different levels. You'd start off maybe with the Seiko 5s and sort of move up eventually to Grand Seiko and Seiko Superior as well. The King Seikos were up there with some of the nicer models, and they always were powered by great movements as well. Now, this doesn't say King Seiko on it, but it has a King Seiko grade movement. I am led to believe from research and what people have said in my Facebook group and so on, that the consensus is this model is a King Seiko, but because it was the export rather than the Japanese domestic market, it wasn't produced with a King Seiko dial on it. You can actually get those. They're hard to find, as is this model, hard to find. I've also been looking around on eBay, sort of in research for this video as well, actually, because trying to find a watch like this, you can get Seiko Lordmatics and you can get some King Seikos from anywhere £200 upwards. You can pay some big money as well for certain models. But yeah, vintage watches, there can be a good buy. There can be a bit of a Pandora's box, but I've never been afraid of them. Obviously I can work on them, so that is to my advantage. But I think your money goes a long way. If you think about the review I did recently on the Praecidus, that was £175 for a quartz movement. Okay, it's sort of homaging or paying tribute to a very iconic war watch, but for that sort of money I can have lots of fun and I can buy all kinds. I could probably even get a Longines for about 175 and fix it up and get it going. So yeah, Vintage World is a great place to be when you know what you're doing, and Seiko is another epic place to start your vintage journey as well. The full model number of this watch, if you wanted to try and find one, is a 5246-5039. Now their first four digits are representing the movement. This has a 5246A movement. That is a 25 joule high beat. This is beating at 28,800 beats per hour, which equates to 8 beats per second. And I'm going to show you that in some slow down footage now. We're on my microscope here and we're just looking at 60 frames per second, so you get an idea of that smooth sweep second hand. Now 28,800 vibrations an hour will give you 8 beats a second. So let's slow this down and I can represent that now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So there we go, 8 beats per second, and that is basically going to give you a little bit more accuracy. There's a lot more ratios going on in the gearing, especially on the escape. With that potentially comes more wear to the movement, yet these Seikos are completely robust. This one is literally 50 years old and it's still running as good as it is new. At least it is now, because obviously I've rebuilt that. And talking of the rebuild, so I've not mentioned it in this video yet. Some of you will know because you've already come over from my main channel, but on my main channel, My Retro Watches, I have done the rebuild video for this. So if you want to see that movement step by step, each and every part put on and assembled to see the watch tick at the end, then please head on over there. I'll welcome you with open arms. There will be a link in the description box below, and I might see if I can put one up in the top corner while I'm at it. The watch has a really interesting and typical 70s styling about it. That case is full of nice angles. It's sort of brushed on the top, although you can't really tell. Very high polished on the sides. No sign crown, although that is a new crown. I had to fit a new crown and stem on this one. Now I've put it on this Milanese bracelet. I've tried it on a leather strap. It looks okay, but it doesn't look okay on the wrist in my opinion. I'm going to do some wrist shots now. So here it is on the Milanese on my 7-inch or 18cm wrist. And here we go again. You can kind of see how the light plays with it. Lovely looking dress watch. So let's have a look at it now also with a leather strap, and then you can tell me which one you perhaps prefer. Excuse the gold buckle, that would be changed should I want to wear this on a leather strap. So have a look at it on my wrist. Tell me first of all whether you like the leather strap or prefer it, but also I wonder how big you might be thinking that watch is. Now I'm betting you thought it might be, I don't know, 36, 38 millimeters perhaps. Well, it's very slender. This is actually 34 millimeters, which is just 1 millimeter under inch and 3/8 if you're working in the imperial system. So it's very narrow. I don't think it looks very narrow on the wrist, certainly. It's only 9.5 millimeters thick, 3/8 in imperial, and 40 millimeters lug to lug. So back again in the 70s, they were making very large watches, but they were still making some smaller ones like this. But I think certainly with the integrated bracelet, the original bracelet, this would have a lot of presence and certainly look bigger than its specs would suggest. Here we are on the bench. Let's just quickly test the movement after the service, see how well it's running. You can see the lift angle set at 53 degrees, and as I've already said, this is a high beat movement. So we get quite a nice looking trace to start with. As you can see, this is running slightly slower than I would like. I mean, -3 seconds is nothing, but realistically this thing's running at about -10, -12 seconds. And I want to get in and tweak that really, but it's not quite as straightforward as it seems. Access to this movement is a little bit more tricky. It's one of those little quirks of some of the Seikos from the 70s. They have an interesting case design. It's a two-piece case. I'm going to show you that in just a moment. Let's just try and put this into a couple of different positions. Let's see if we get any consistency. And yes, you can see there we go. So that's crown down or pendant down. Quite a stressful place for it to be. And again, it's consistent, but you'd want that. You need to see that on a high beat movement. This is a higher grade, you know, being a King Seiko all but in name, you would expect this to be one of Seiko's better movements. Crown up, again, that line is consistency falling. Well, it's now gone to -19, but I don't believe that. It is still more like -10 to -12 seconds a day. Put it at dial down. I don't like putting dial down position like this. I always think it gives a bit of a false reading, but again, still consistent, isn't it? There we go. Right, let me just show you how easy or difficult it is to get into this case. So this is a two-piece case. I get this asked quite a lot, certainly through my website when people have got the same watch or a very similar watch. How do I get into it? Of course, remove the bracelet or the strap, and then you've got these little cutouts. Sometimes they're just one small one here and one small one on the other side. They're always on both sides of the case, and that's like a little spring, like a little leaf spring in there. And the key to getting this open is to use a case knife to push the spring. What I'm going to be doing with my thumb here is pushing up, and with the crystal pushing down. And now it is just coming out, as you can see. What is further difficulty on this one, I'm not going to do it now because it means I've cleaned all of the dial. This is a acrylic crystal. There is this little, I don't know if you can see that little white bit there, that's part of the gasket. It's covering a tiny hole, and in that tiny hole is the setting lever that you can push. It sort of sticks out a little bit, and you can push that. And the only way to push it, actually, to release the stem, is to make sure the crown is in. If you pull the crown out, you can't see it. So you've got to push the stem in, use something very small to get in there to release it. It can be dangerous, very close to the dial. And then once you've got the stem out, then you can get to the movement. So you can see my dilemma of trying to tweak this a little bit more to get the accuracy up. That means I've got to take it all out, realistically take the dial and the hands off, so I can regulate it properly, put them all back on again, get it all back in the case, and then test it. So it kind of goes on and on and on, which is can be a bit of a bind. So I'm happy enough that 10 seconds a day is good enough for me. This will get worn only usually 1 or 2 days at a time. I typically change my watch every day. The next really cool feature about this watch, which is different to a lot of 70s Seikos that I've worked on and own, is the day-date change at 12. So when we wind this on, the change is immediate, i.e. the day and the date will change simultaneously. Now, quite often with watches, because of the way the mechanics or the mechanism works, the date will click over and then the day follows. And a lot of the Seikos that I've got, and trust me, I've got a lot, the date will go at 12, or how accurately you can set that with the hands, and then the day follows on, usually an hour later, sometimes 2 hours. But this one, as you can see, is instantaneously. It's set a little bit early at sort of, well, what's that, 13 minutes to 12. So again, that's something else I could tweak. You want to see a bit more about how that mechanism works, then I do feature that in the assembly video that is on the main channel. So once again, I'm going to plug that. Head over there, you'll see every little component of this movement in pieces and put it in the right place to make it tick again. So just before I end the video, I mean, I really do hope you've enjoyed seeing the review of this one. I love the way that dial changes in the light there. This obviously came in a gold case originally. Here is that gold case, and I have never seen gold plating. It's not really real gold, but it's gold coloured plating been eaten away in the way it has on this one. Somebody must have had like acid sweat. I do, however, think that it works well in the stainless steel case. Probably would have worked better in the gold, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. The bracelet, here's a bit of the bracelet, has been okay. Now, you may be wondering why I can't, or why I haven't used that, and that's because I needed the end links for my friend Craig's watch. I actually stripped the gold plating off the end links, polished them all up, well, put a brush finish on them to match his stainless steel bracelet he'd got, to give him obviously the watch that he wanted. So there we go, that is the end. Please consider subscribing if you're new to this channel. I need all the subscribers and I need all the views. All really does help to, well, motivate me really to put out more content for you to enjoy. Head over to the main channel, My Retro Watches. There will be a link in the description box below where you can see this being worked on, and many other Seikos and many other watches as well. This is a thing I'd like to do really, is the watches I restore on the main channel, also to review them over here. It's a bit of, you know, cross-matching the two channels together. If that's working, again, let me know in the comments. I'd welcome any feedback right now. Bye for now.